Hey guys, how's it going? Today's video is one that I'm really excited about. It is my 10 favorite books that I read in 2019. One quick caveat though, I'm not including any rereads or any of my friends' books. I had a couple friends release books this year that obviously I'm biased with, so it just felt unfair to put them on this list. I am going to make a whole video eventually about my friends' books and stuff like that, but I'm trying to be really objective here, but this is my list as fair as I could make it. Coming in at number 10, A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I ended up giving this an 8.5 out of 10. It was so close to be like a 9 or 9.5, but there are some things that were just too convenient. Essentially, there's all these different like parallel universes, and our main character Kel can travel between them because he's a certain type of magician, and the magic system is really cool. There were unfortunately some things, especially towards the end, that, like I said, were just a little bit too convenient, but I still really enjoyed the plot. I loved the characters. I thought that Kel was just super fun and I loved following him. I loved most of the characters, honestly. Even the ones that I didn't like, I still loved, if that makes sense. And I really loved him and Lila. I loved their buddy ship. It was kind of like a bromance. I really liked that. I just loved the way they interacted. I thought that the world building was a little bit light, but still immersive enough that you could feel the difference between the different Londons. So I thought that was really cool, and it was just really interesting to see it and to experience it, and I really do want to finish the series eventually, but I know that I'm going to be getting some gift cards for Christmas, so I'm waiting so I can get that, so I can buy the series so I can continue, but the series is off to a very good start. Coming in at number 9 was Don't Look Back by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I gave this book a 9 out of 10, and I know that some people didn't like it. It is a little bit cheesy, and it's a little bit far-fetched. Essentially, these two girls go missing, and then one day one of them comes back, she walks into town covered in blood and has no memory, and you're trying to figure out what happened to the other one, is she still alive, what's going on, what happened to her, why is she covered in blood, etc. You do have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit because she has no idea who she is, she doesn't recognize her parents, like she has no memory at all. Obviously, it's a little bit far-fetched, but if you can get past that, it's really enjoyable. She goes back to her life and all of her friends are just really mean, and she's basically just the preppy bully. The thing that I really liked about this book, and maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much, is it's essentially just a very dark Mean Girls for that whole subplot. Hi Ripley! Hello! That whole subplot is essentially just a really dark Mean Girls, and I just think that's hilarious. So when you start picturing the main character as Regina George but without her memory, the book is immediately 10 times better. So if you're reading this book and you're not really enjoying it, just picture it as dark Mean Girls and you'll love it. Also, to be fair, memory loss and the whole amnesia and trying to piece together based off no memory mystery thing is a trope that I really like. I really just love people solving mysteries without any memories because it's a fun little element that I like. I also thought that the mystery itself was done pretty good because every character had a motive. They did a really good job at making everybody a suspect at different points, which I always enjoy. I will admit that the secondary characters were really flat, but it got the job done and I liked it. Coming in at number 8 is The Holograms Handbook by Robert Picardo. I love this book so much. It was so much fun. This is a fake autobiography written by the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. It was so in character. The Doctor was one of my favorite characters. I always seem to like the Doctor characters in Star Trek. Like, Bones is my all-time favorite. Anyway, I loved the Doctor. He was so, like, dry and funny and sarcastic, and I just loved his character. And this is his fake autobiography. If you're a fan of Star Trek, specifically Star Trek Voyager, I highly recommend this book because it's so funny. It's, like I said, so in character with the Doctor. There's so many like references and little inside snippets that are really fascinating. But to be completely honest, if you have never watched Star Trek or Star Trek Voyager, this book isn't really going to make that much sense because all of the little references are just going to be kind of bland. Like, I think it would still be an enjoyable book, but it would not be anywhere near as fun as I found it to be. It's a really short book too. It's only, I think, 84 pages. So it's a super quick read, And if you are a fan of Star Trek Voyager, I highly, highly recommend it. Coming in at number 7, But You Did Not Come Back by Marceline Loredan-Ivans. I have talked about this book so many times. This book is so heartbreaking. I loved it. It's the memoir of a Jewish woman that was a teenager in Auschwitz in the concentration camps. It's a lot more personal than that, because while she's in there, her father, who's in a nearby concentration camp, is able to sneak her a letter that basically just says, you know, stay strong, I love you, stuff like that. And essentially, this is her reply letter because she survived and her father didn't, and he never came back. And it is so gut-wrenching and heartbreaking and soul-crushing. I don't know, it's just really, really hard to read sometimes, and it just was so moving because it's not like a story for the reader to understand what it was like in the concentration camps. It's a story for her father. It's so personal that it's hard to read at times. Obviously, she talks about how hard it was to, you know, be in the concentration camps and all of that, but it's only a small part of the book. The rest is, you know, how hard it was for her to come back home, and even though obviously her family was happy to see her, her little brother, who was a baby when she was taken away and doesn't really remember her, doesn't understand why she came back home and not his father. And she talks about just how hard it was to just get back into society and live her life, and she talks about her husband and how much her father would have loved him and how much of a good man he was, and it's so personal and heartbreaking, and I cried so much. That's one thing that I love in a book. If it can like break my heart and make me have all of those feelings, that's a sign of a really good book, and this book definitely did that. Coming in at number 6 was The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. This was a really fun book, but I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a mystery book, and I think that you should really go in not knowing much and just seeing where it takes you. Long story short, it's basically somebody was killed and there was these chalk drawings found at the scene, and there's a group of kids that always drew these chalk drawings, and they're kind of linked to it, and you're trying to figure out basically the whole mystery. And there's a lot of other crimes that happen throughout the book, and it's just really interesting seeing how everything was connected and all of these characters. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I was kind of confused in the starting because I listened to it on audiobook, and there's a character named Mickey and a character named Nikki, and I didn't realize there was a Mickey and a Nikki at the very beginning. So I was just very confused, but there's 2 characters, one is named Mickey and one is named Nikki, and they're 2 different people. But I really enjoyed it. It was really fun just getting the insight. I found one part of the ending I found kind of predictable, but it didn't take away from the mystery for me because it was really fun at seeing how things tied together and how we got to that point. I'm the kind of person that even if I know how the mystery ends, if it's an interesting enough ride to get there, I really like it. And from what I heard, a lot of other people didn't find this as predictable. There is an assumption that you're supposed to make in the beginning that I didn't make, and I think that if you go in with that assumption, it's definitely a lot more of a mystery, but where I didn't make that assumption or didn't realize how heavily they were hinting at that, I think that's why some things I was able to guess a little bit more. But I really liked all of the other mini mysteries that were all wrapped together, and then it wasn't just, here's one thing that happened and here's the linear story of how it happened. It's this and then 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 this, and I really liked that. So it was definitely a very fun read. Coming in at number 5, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. So I mentioned 5 seconds ago that I really like books that make me cry. I cried a lot. I gave this a 9.5 out of 10. I actually borrowed this from my library on audiobook, and as soon as I finished it, I went out and bought a copy because I knew that I needed to own this book. It was so beautiful. It takes place in a world that's essentially our world, but they somehow have this technology that they can find out the day that somebody's gonna die. You get a phone call on the day you're gonna die at like between midnight and 3 a.m. telling you, hey, it's your last day. Sorry, have fun. And it's about 2 boys that get the call, and it's just them living their last day, and they end up meeting up because there's this app called Last Friend, and you can go on, and if it's your last day, you can, meet with other people that's their last day, or other people that want to help you on your last day, and stuff like that. Like, it's really interesting. But it is so heartbreaking. It's the cutest love story, and you know that I am not into love stories. I am not a romance person, but I fell in love with these characters and I fell in love with them falling in love, and they're just so cute. I like the things that happened and the things that didn't happen. Another thing I liked is that even though the romance in this is obviously the focal point and it's a beautiful romance, I liked all of the other relationships and how equally important they were. Like the main characters and their best friends and them and their families, and just, I don't know, I like that it's not all about the romance, it's not all about their romantic relationship. It's about their whole life and how everybody is so important to them. Just know that it's sad and heartbreaking and beautiful. If you like crying, I highly recommend reading this book. Coming in at number 4 is Daughter Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, specifically the first one. The first one I gave a 9.5 out of 10. The second one I really liked, but the third one got like an 8 out of 10, maybe 7.5. If I didn't like the first one so much, I would have liked the third one less, but because I went in already liking so many aspects of it, I liked it more. But anyways, I really liked this story. It's this world about magic and monsters and angels and like demons and evil. This was so up my alley. I love monsters and I really like deep, immersive, magical feeling worlds, and this world just felt so magical. And I don't necessarily just mean like magic powers, just like magical. There's just something about it that was beautiful and I loved it. The story was also such a roller coaster, and the cliffhangers were like jarring in a really, really good way. There's different sections in this book, and every time you get to the end of the section, it just has like, well, let me show you. So this is the first one. This is like the very first page, so it's not any spoilers. Once upon a time, an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well. I don't know, it gets you right into it, and some of them are like shocking and like heartbreaking and sudden, and I just loved this so much. Like I said, the third book really didn't hold up all that well. I found they kind of lost track of the plot and went in a different direction, and there were so many things that I think should have happened that didn't, or things that just kind of seemed to drop off and get forgotten about. But the first book I absolutely adored. The second book was really good too, but this one specifically was definitely one of my favorite books that I read this year. Coming in at number 3, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Again, it's such a magical feeling world. This is one of those books that I really don't think you should know much about the plot. All you need to know is it takes place in this magical circus and there's like a magical competition going on. And I really don't want to give any more than that. But this world is just so deep and immersive, and it's just, the world building in this is so vivid. As I was reading this, I felt like I could go to this night circus. I felt like our world had real magic. This book is the most atmospheric book I think I've ever read. I just felt so in that world. It felt so real and so vivid and so immersive, and it was just so well done. Also, the characters were great. I really liked all of their relationship with each other. I liked the plot, but the plot didn't necessarily matter as much. It was atmosphere and then characters and then plot. I really liked all three, but that was clearly their order of importance, and I think that worked really well because, like I said, I love magical atmospheres, I love worlds that feel like magic, and this world made me feel like our world had magic too. It was just like magic just radiating off the page and getting into my soul, and it was just so much fun. It was also like the perfect level of mysterious, which is why I don't think you should know much about the plot going into it, because discovering the plot is such a big part of it. That was so much fun. But it was just so beautifully written, and I really can't wait to read Erin Morgenstern's next book because I fell in love with this writing style and I really want to see what else she writes. But this book was so good. Coming in at number 2 is technically a tie, but it is Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. Strange the Dreamer got a 10 out of 10, but Muse of Nightmares got a 9.5 out of 10, and I think it just makes the most sense to put them both together. I'm not going to be talking about the sequel though, because spoilers. Honestly, I think that this is another book that you should go in knowing very little about the plot. All you need to know is there's a world called Weep that the real name has been forgotten over time, and they've kind of disappeared, and it's weird and magical, and there's this boy named Laszlo who wants to discover the mysteries, and he gets the opportunity to because circumstances, and that's really all I want to say. But this book again, just felt so magical and immersive, and this writing style was just so incredible. This honestly might be the most beautiful writing I have ever read. Like, beautiful is really the right word for it, I think. Every word just seems so perfectly chosen, and there's just this melody to it that's just so beautiful. The world is crafted in such amazing detail, and it's an experience. It really is. Everything felt real and vivid and just so, I don't even know how to describe it without just repeating myself over and over again, but it was such beautiful writing, such a beautiful story, so incredible, and I could not stop thinking about this book. This book had so many different beautiful lines and quotes that really stuck with me. This book is another one that it was really just such a beautiful adventure, finding out the story and the plot and just watching everything unfold and experiencing it with the characters, and it was just so great. There was a couple things that were a little bit predictable, but it didn't matter because the journey to get there was just so incredible. And finally, my number one favorite book that I read this year is the Mistborn trilogy, specifically though Hero of Ages. Final Empire and Well of Ascension were both 9.5 out of 10s, but Hero of Ages was a 10 out of 10. I can't even tell you the plot of this one because obviously spoilers, but the premise of the story is essentially 3,000 or so years ago, the prophesized hero and the chosen one failed. And now the Lord Ruler, the evil overlord, has taken over the world, and people are oppressed, and the world is terrible and dying, and they don't have flowers anymore, and like all of this stuff. The magic system was a little bit hard to understand at first, but there is a glossary in the back of the book that explains how it works, but it's all metal based. If you have magic, you can either control one metal or all of them. Obviously, the world, the characters, world building, atmosphere, etc. were amazing, but the plot of this was mind-blowing. Brandon frigin Sanderson. You think you know where things are going. You think you have it figured out, and then you're wrong. And then you think you know what you're supposed to be thinking, and then you're wrong again. And then you're so sure that you finally figured it out, and then nope, you're wrong again. There was even one thing that I guessed right, but there was another twist that made me realize that that one was wrong, and it turns out that one was right, but he convinced me to change my mind because Brandon frigin Sanderson. I'm actually filming this video a little bit early because my dad asked for these books for Christmas. He gave them to me last year for Christmas, and this year he texted me saying, "Hey, I have a great Christmas idea and you already own them. I want those books that I gave you. I'll give them back when I'm done." So I'm lending my dad these books for Christmas. So I'm so excited for someone else to read these books because I just need to talk about them all the time. I talked about them to my mother because my mother doesn't really read much. She doesn't really read much fantasy. And I knew she wasn't going to read them, so I spoiled everything for her so I could rant about it because I just needed to talk to somebody because I was just yelling to the cats in the middle of the night. I know that people always say, you know, "Oh, I'm screaming." No, I really was screaming. I finished this book and just started yelling, which it was like 5 in the morning at that point, and I was just speaking very loudly and just making noises because I just, it was so good. All 3 books just had me so like mind blown, and it really goes to show how amazing Brandon Sanderson is at crafting worlds, and just his writing is just so incredible. And even though there were some things about these books that I preferred in other books, just the way that things were executed here, the way that everything came together was just, I'm not over it. I'm still not over it. I read these back in like March, I think. March, I think, and I'm still gushing about them. I'm still ranting about them. So for that reason, the whole Mistborn trilogy is hands down my favorite book that I read this year. And that is my list. Honestly, this was such a great reading year. I found so many favorite books. This list was really hard to make. It was hard to rank them, and there was just so many books that I wanted to put on this list because I read so many incredible books. If you've read any of these books, let me know and we can chat about them. If you want to go into anything spoilery, you can message me on Twitter at TehBuggy, and let me know what your favorite books of the year were, or if you have a top 10 video or something, let me know so I can watch it. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button to let me know, and subscribe so you can find out if 2020 can possibly hold a candle to 2019, because Holy cow. I post reading and writing related videos every Wednesday and Sunday. So hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye.